At 8:42 p.m., a shot rang out in the quiet of the therapist's office. The sound echoed through the walls, a single, deafening note that shattered the veneer of a perfect life. It was supposed to be a safe space, a place for healing, for unraveling the mess of years gone wrong. But instead, it became the scene of a crime, the catalyst for a story that would rock a community to its core. In the world of couples therapy, there's an unspoken promise. A promise that a room, a professional, and the right words can mend broken hearts and fractured bonds. But sometimes, what lies beneath the surface is far darker than the love we believe in. This is the story of Maya and Jeremiah Willis, a couple that seemed to have it all. Beautiful, successful, well-loved in their community. They were the type of couple you envied. The ones whose social media posts were filled with smiles, vacations, and moments of pure joy. But even the most picture-perfect lives can hide secrets, secrets that, once revealed, can destroy everything. Before we begin, like this video and comment where you are watching from. Your support helps us bring more intriguing stories. Now let's begin. The couple had been seeing Dr. Felicia Andrews, a renowned therapist with a reputation for saving even the most broken relationships. For months, Maya and Jeremiah had sat in her office, unraveling their issues one session at a time. Yet, for all their progress, things seemed to be slipping further away. It wasn't the arguments over chores, or the occasional misunderstanding about dinner plans. No, it was something far deeper, something that neither of them had the courage to confront. Jeremiah had changed. The man Maya had once married, the man who used to be kind and gentle, was no longer the same. There was a coldness in his eyes, a hardness in his voice. At first, she thought it was the stress of work, the burden of life wearing him down. But as the months wore on, she realized it was more than that. It was as if the man she had known and loved was slipping away, replaced by someone else entirely. Dr. Andrews had noticed a shift too. During their sessions, Maya would try to explain it, trying to articulate the inexplicable change in her husband. But Jeremiah would always deflect, his defenses up, his responses calculated. "I'm fine," he would say. "Maya's just overthinking it. Always has." But Maya knew. Deep down, she knew something wasn't right. One fateful evening, the session took a turn. It was supposed to be just another attempt to move forward, to uncover the root of their discontent. Instead, it became the beginning of something much more sinister. In the therapist's office, as the hour passed, Maya couldn't shake the growing sense of dread that had gripped her heart. Jeremiah was unusually quiet, distant even. The air between them felt thick, oppressive, like the calm before a storm. She glanced at Dr. Andrews, who looked back at her with a knowing expression. The weight of what was happening was becoming undeniable. Then it happened. Maya would later describe the events that unfolded in that room as a blur, a nightmare that descended on them in an instant. One moment they were talking. The next, she heard a sound, sharp, jarring, and foreign. It was the sound of a gunshot. As the smoke of that first shot still lingered in the air, Maya would never forget the look on Jeremiah's face. It was something she had never seen before, a combination of rage, fear, and perhaps relief. But it wasn't until later, after the police arrived, that she would learn the chilling truth about the events that had led to that fateful moment. Maya's world was about to be torn apart, and the secrets she had been too afraid to face were finally coming to light. The gunshot wasn't the first betrayal. As detectives pieced together the events of that night, they discovered something shocking. Jeremiah had been seeing someone else, but it wasn't just any affair. No, this woman wasn't a mere fling. She had been someone in Maya's own life, someone she trusted, Dr. Felicia Andrews herself. It turned out that what had started as a professional relationship had blurred into something much darker. Jeremiah and Dr. Andrews had been having an affair for months, right under Maya's nose, in the very space where Maya believed she was working toward reconciliation. But why? Why would a therapist, someone sworn to help mend broken marriages, betray one of her clients in such a horrific way? Was it love? Was it power? Or was it simply the destruction of two lives she had been hired to heal? The motive was murky, but one thing was clear. The affair had set the stage for a tragedy no one could have predicted. As Maya is left reeling from the truth of Jeremiah's betrayal, she finds herself questioning everything she thought she knew about their marriage. But the investigation is far from over. As the detectives dig deeper, they uncover a web of lies that leads them to an even more unsettling revelation about Dr. Andrews, a revelation that will shatter the fragile line between healer and villain. The gunshot had already shattered Maya's world, but the truth of it all, the depths of the betrayal, was still waiting to be uncovered. Detectives had a difficult job on their hands. The therapist's office, usually a sanctuary of healing, had become the stage for a shocking act of violence. But it wasn't just the gunshot that had them reeling. It was the story that began to unfold after Maya was questioned in the hours that followed. As the police spoke with her, Maya's mind struggled to comprehend the storm that had broken over her life. She had always considered herself a woman of strength, someone who could weather any storm, who could fix things, find solutions. But here, in this sterile room filled with white walls and the hum of fluorescent lights, she felt like a victim in a story she had never written. Jeremiah's coldness, the affair with Dr. Andrews, all of it was too much. Yet, there was a part of her, deep down, that still couldn't let go of the man she had once loved. She wondered if he was the same person at all, the same man who had made her laugh, the man who had proposed on a chilly evening by the river, the man she had imagined growing old with. But now, all she could see was a stranger. The next morning, the police arrived at Dr. Felicia Andrews' home. The upscale apartment, tucked away in the heart of the city, had always seemed like the perfect reflection of her professional success. Stylish, elegant, pristine. No one would have suspected that such a well-regarded therapist could harbor such dangerous secrets. But as they entered her apartment, the detectives immediately noticed something unusual. There on her coffee table were scraps of paper, disorganized, crumpled, and scattered. At first glance, it seemed innocent enough, perhaps a client's notes, some scribbled thoughts. But upon further inspection, the papers told a far more disturbing story. Among the notes, there were references to Jeremiah, to Maya, to their sessions, and even to Maya's deepest insecurities, which Dr. Andrews had never been authorized to know. It became clear that she wasn't just a passive participant in their therapy sessions. She was an active player in their lives, manipulating the dynamics in ways no one could have anticipated. As the detectives dug deeper, they found more. A tape recorder, hidden in a drawer, its contents revealing more than anyone could have expected. The therapist was not just keeping tabs on Maya's marriage, she was documenting it. Every conversation, every fight, every moment of vulnerability. Dr. Andrews had been playing God, and Maya and Jeremiah were just pawns in a game she had been orchestrating all along. But why? Why would someone so trusted, so revered, destroy the very lives they were meant to heal? Was it simply lust? Or was there a more sinister motive lurking beneath the surface? Detectives soon learned that Dr. Andrews was not just a therapist with a troubled personal life. No, her motivations went much deeper. It was not just a love affair with Jeremiah. Dr. Andrews had known about Maya's past, her painful childhood, the trauma she had worked so hard to bury. She had used this knowledge to her advantage, using Maya's vulnerabilities as leverage to break down her marriage. It seemed as if everything had been premeditated, with an endgame in sight. Then the bombshell came. Detectives discovered that Dr. Andrews wasn't just manipulating her clients in the therapy room. She had been secretly blackmailing them as well. The tapes, the notes, the intimate knowledge of their lives. It was all part of a scheme to ensure that Maya and Jeremiah would never leave her. They were her leverage, her means of control. But the most chilling revelation was still to come. It wasn't just the affair with Jeremiah that had set Dr. Andrews off. She had grown obsessed with the idea of Maya's suffering. The more Dr. Andrews learned about Maya's struggles, the more she began to see her as an object of fascination, something to possess. Not just a client, but a project to manipulate. Maya's pain became Dr. Andrews' currency. And in the warped world of therapeutic ethics, there was no line that couldn't be crossed. But all of this, a calculated, cold betrayal, wouldn't have been enough. It wouldn't have been enough to drive someone to murder. So, detectives wondered, what was the final push? What was it that had made this calm, composed therapist snap? They soon found the answer. As the detectives pieced together Dr. Andrews' past, they uncovered a long-forgotten detail, an incident that had occurred years before, during her time working at a different clinic. There, in a hidden file, they found evidence of another patient, someone whose story eerily mirrored Maya's, someone whose life had been ruined by the very same manipulative tactics. But that story, that patient, was a person no one had ever suspected, Dr. Andrews' own sister. Had Dr. Andrews been working through her own unresolved trauma? Was this murder a twisted form of revenge for a life lost to her? Or was it something darker, something far more calculated? As the web of deceit and manipulation grows tighter, one thing becomes clear. Dr. Andrews wasn't just a therapist. She was the architect of a dark and twisted plan, and the murder in the therapist's office was the final stroke of her malicious masterpiece. Detectives couldn't shake the feeling that they were only scratching the surface. Each new discovery led them deeper into a labyrinth of lies, manipulation, and unspoken truths. The investigation into the murder of Dr. Felicia Andrews' client, Maya Willis, had already uncovered layers of betrayal, an affair, blackmail, and twisted psychological control. But the more they uncovered, the more questions emerged. As they dug further into Dr. Andrews' past, they stumbled upon a haunting detail, a hidden file, buried deep within the archives of her former clinic, which revealed the name of someone who had never been part of the case until now. Detective Donovan scanned the papers. His eyes widened as he read aloud. Rachel Andrews, age 27, patient from 2 years ago, discharged under suspicious circumstances. Rachel Andrews, Dr. Andrews' estranged sister, had been a patient at a different clinic long before the tragedy with Maya and Jeremiah. According to the file, Rachel had been diagnosed with severe trauma, stemming from a history of abuse, much of which had been inflicted by her own sister. At first, it seemed like just another case of family dysfunction. But as Detective Donovan read deeper, he realized something darker was at play. Rachel's case had been terminated abruptly after Dr. Andrews had been accused of manipulating her therapy sessions for personal gain. Was it possible? The manipulation that had destroyed Maya's marriage had begun years earlier with Dr. Andrews' own sister. As Detective Donovan delved deeper into the details, he pieced together a chilling narrative. Dr. Andrews' obsession with control hadn't begun with Maya. It had started long before, with Rachel, a vulnerable woman desperate for healing, only to find herself trapped in the hands of a cold, calculating therapist. Rachel's story, one of manipulation and emotional abuse, echoed Maya's in ways too precise to be coincidence. The file revealed something even more chilling. Rachel had died under suspicious circumstances shortly after her therapy sessions had ended. As the investigation continued, it became clear that Dr. Andrews had been lying about Rachel's death. Official records had ruled it an accidental overdose, but Detective Donovan's suspicions grew. He uncovered evidence that Rachel had tried to escape, leaving a final, desperate note to a friend just days before her death. The note read, "Felicia did this. She's pushing me too far. I'm not safe. If something happens to me, don't let it be a mistake." What had Dr. Andrews done to her sister? The idea that she could be responsible for Rachel's death, just as she had destroyed Maya's marriage, was almost too horrifying to consider. And yet, the pieces fit together in a way that made it undeniable. Rachel's life had been manipulated, much like Maya's, until she became expendable. Just another victim in Dr. Andrews' quest for control. The tragic irony, however, was that Rachel's death had remained an unspoken truth, a quiet skeleton in the closet, until now. The question remained, had Dr. Andrews' obsession with control finally driven her to murder once again? Now Maya's life was under threat. She was no longer just a victim of betrayal, but a potential pawn in a dangerous game. Detective Donovan feared that Dr. Andrews wouldn't stop until she had completed her twisted plan. As Detective Donovan prepared to question Dr. Andrews directly, Maya received an unexpected phone call. The voice on the other end was unmistakable. It was Jeremiah, but it wasn't the apology or regret Maya had expected. No, his voice was cold, distant, and satisfied. "I did it, Maya. You're free now. It's all over." For a moment, Maya stood frozen. The words didn't make sense. What was he talking about? Maya, I'm sorry, but it was the only way. Jeremiah continued. It's done now. Dr. Andrews won't hurt you anymore. But as Maya listened to his words, something inside her shifted. Was this a confession? Was he admitting to something more than just an affair? Or was this just another layer of manipulation? Another twisted move in a game where she had no control? In that moment, Maya realized that the truth about her marriage, about Jeremiah, was far more complex than she had ever imagined. What had been built on lies was now unraveling. But the question was, what had Jeremiah really done? Maya couldn't trust him. Not anymore. But did that mean she could trust anyone? Could she rely on Detective Donovan to stop Dr. Andrews before it was too late? The chilling realization settled in. Nothing was ever truly as it seemed. When Maya heard Jeremiah's voice crackle through the phone, the world seemed to stop. His words hung in the air like a weight too heavy to ignore, but too cryptic to understand. It's done now, he had said. Dr. Andrews won't hurt you anymore. Maya was left reeling. For the first time in months, she felt a surge of both relief and terror. Had it been Jeremiah all along? Had he been a mastermind behind the chaos that had unfolded in their lives? Detective Donovan wasted no time following up on Maya's call. After weeks of gathering evidence, the pieces were finally falling into place. He had a hunch that this case, one that had seemed like a simple love triangle gone wrong, was something far darker. His instincts told him that the truth was deeper, more calculated, and that Dr. Andrews had been far more involved in the tragedy than anyone had originally thought. The twisted reality Maya faced now was something she couldn't have fathomed. She had spent her life loving a man who, it seemed, had never truly been hers. Jeremiah's confession, if that was even what it was, did not offer solace, only dread. Maya was a woman who had always believed in the sanctity of truth, in the clarity of the love she shared with her husband. Now, however, she questioned everything she thought she knew about herself, her marriage, and the people closest to her. What if Jeremiah had been playing her, just like Dr. Andrews had played them all? The plot thickened when Detective Donovan received an anonymous tip. A call came through to his department, a low voice with a familiar cadence. It was a woman, but not Maya. The voice was cold, calculating. It was Dr. Andrews. Dr. Andrews had been expecting the investigation to catch up to her, but she was always 5 steps ahead. She told Donovan everything he had feared. Jeremiah was always my partner in this, she confessed in a chilling, measured tone. He came to me, asking for help. He wanted Maya's pain to be his release. I just gave him a nudge in the right direction. The phone call painted a horrific picture of collusion. Dr. Andrews hadn't just been manipulating her clients. She had been orchestrating every aspect of Maya and Jeremiah's marriage, their suffering, their breakdown. She had been the puppet master, and they were her marionettes. But the most unnerving part of the confession was Dr. Andrews' calmness. She didn't sound like someone who was being cornered by the law. No, she sounded like someone who had already won. She knew she held all the cards, and now it was just a matter of time before she took the last one. Maya never knew what was happening behind her back. She never saw me coming. And what was worse, the most chilling detail of all, was Dr. Andrews' admission that her motives had never been about money, revenge, or even love. She had been playing the long game, using both Maya and Jeremiah to create the perfect storm, one that would allow her to control their lives forever. It wasn't about their marriage. It wasn't about saving their love. It was about power. She had orchestrated the affair, manipulated their therapy sessions, and pushed both of them to the edge. But there was more, a darker, deeper motive lurking beneath the surface. Dr. Andrews wasn't just a therapist. She was someone who thrived on destruction. She needed to break people, to twist their emotions until they shattered. As Detective Donovan pieced the puzzle together, he discovered something that made his blood run cold. Dr. Andrews had been using Maya's therapy sessions as a way to document every vulnerability, every insecurity, and every traumatic experience in her life. She had been cataloging Maya's weaknesses, building a psychological profile designed to push her to the brink of collapse. And Jeremiah? He wasn't just a victim. He had been an active participant. Dr. Andrews had seduced him with her promises of power, and together, they had plotted to destroy Maya from the inside out. They wanted her to break, to fall apart in such a way that she would never be able to rebuild. Maya wasn't just a wife. They had seen her as a project to manipulate, a perfect specimen of psychological warfare. As the web of lies and manipulation unraveled, Maya's disbelief began to turn into anger. Jeremiah, her husband, the man she thought she knew, had been working with Dr. Andrews all along. They had used her love, her trust, as a pawn in their game. But the most devastating revelation came when Detective Donovan uncovered one final piece of evidence. Dr. Andrews had not just planned for Maya's downfall, but for her own twisted redemption. She had planned to use the chaos of Maya's life as a way to take control of her own fate. Her confession to Donovan was a statement of victory. I've always known how to break people, but this was my greatest work. It's over. It's all over now. Just as Detective Donovan thought he had the upper hand, he received another shocking phone call from Maya herself. Her voice trembled with fear, but there was something else too, a sense of urgency, as if she had just uncovered something terrible. "Jeremiah's gone, Donovan. I think he's planning something worse. I think he's coming after me." As Donovan's pulse quickened, he could hear the faint sound of shuffling in the background. Maya was no longer in control. The roles had reversed. Jeremiah, the man who had once been the love of her life, had become the very person she feared most. And now, it was a race against time to stop him before it was too late. The calm that Detective Donovan had clung to was shattering. The pieces of the puzzle were now in place, but the final image was far from clear. Maya's voice had been filled with terror when she called him. It was a sound he hadn't heard from her before. Gone was the woman who had endured months of manipulation, now replaced by someone desperate to escape a nightmare that seemed to be closing in on her from all sides. Jeremiah was no longer the man he had once been. He had become something darker, something driven by a need for control that had been shaped over months of manipulation by Dr. Andrews. His obsession with Maya had crossed a dangerous line, and now, with his twisted confession still hanging in the air, Donovan knew that the final act of this tragedy was far from over. The investigation had come to a halt when Maya's call ended abruptly. Detective Donovan had rushed to the address Maya had given him, but when he arrived, the house was eerily quiet. The blinds were drawn, and there were no signs of life. It was as if Maya had vanished into thin air. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. In the silence of the house, Donovan felt the weight of every choice Maya had ever made pressing down on him. Her marriage had been a lie, her trust shattered by the man she thought she knew. But it was more than that now. Jeremiah was out there somewhere. Maya was still missing, and Dr. Andrews, though under investigation, had somehow managed to remain a ghost in the shadows, her influence hanging over everyone involved. It wasn't just a matter of finding Maya anymore. It was a matter of stopping a cycle of manipulation, control, and murder that had left devastation in its wake. As Donovan scoured the house for clues, he found something unexpected. Beneath the floorboards of the living room, there was a small, hidden compartment. Inside it were several personal journals, not Maya's, but Dr. Andrews. The journals detailed her obsession with Maya, her careful documentation of every psychological crack in the facade of their marriage. But the most chilling revelation came from an entry dated just weeks before the murder. "Jeremiah will be my key. He'll turn on Maya. It's only a matter of time." The realization hit Donovan like a blow to the chest. Dr. Andrews had been planning this. She had used Maya's marriage to manipulate Jeremiah, knowing that the deeper he fell into her trap, the closer she would come to breaking Maya completely. Dr. Andrews had never been in love with Jeremiah. No, he was just another piece in her game. But with Maya, it was different. Maya was the one who had disrupted her carefully crafted plan. Maya's resilience, her strength, was a threat, and in Dr. Andrews' world, threats were eliminated. And now the last threat, the last obstacle, was Maya herself. Donovan was no longer chasing the truth. He was chasing a man. Jeremiah had become the key to everything. He had been broken, shaped, and manipulated into a puppet. And now, it was only a matter of finding him before his fixation on Maya spiraled further into violence. Donovan had no time to waste. The clock was ticking. As he made his way to his car, his phone buzzed. A text message from Maya. "He's coming for me. I think I'm going to die tonight." Those words would be the last thing Maya said before she disappeared into the night. Detective Donovan's heart pounded in his chest as he sped toward the address Maya had given him earlier. He knew Jeremiah was close, and if he didn't act quickly, it would be too late. But what neither Donovan nor Maya realized was that Jeremiah wasn't just coming for her. He was coming for both of them. The night was thick with tension as Donovan arrived at Maya's house. The door creaked open, and the faint sound of footsteps echoed in the darkness. He moved cautiously, his hand gripping his gun, but as he turned the corner to the living room, he froze. Jeremiah was there, standing in the middle of the room. His face was twisted with an expression Donovan couldn't quite place: grief, anger, something more primal. And standing in front of him, in the dim glow of the moonlight, was Maya. Her hands were raised, her body trembling. But there was something different about her. She wasn't just fighting for her life. She was fighting for her mind. The last words Donovan heard before the gunshot rang out were Maya's. "I'm not afraid anymore." The darkness swallowed them whole. The shot echoed through the stillness of the night. But for a moment, everything stopped. Time seemed to stretch, and the weight of what had just transpired hung in the air like a suffocating fog. Donovan's breath hitched as he watched Maya stand frozen, her eyes wide, but there was no sign of injury. Maya had pulled the trigger. Donovan's mind raced, trying to make sense of the scene in front of him. Jeremiah, the man she once loved, now lying on the ground, his blood staining the cold wooden floor. The chaos that had consumed their lives had reached its crescendo, and the man responsible for the turmoil, the pain, and the destruction lay in front of him, motionless. Maya's trembling hand slowly lowered the gun, the adrenaline still rushing through her veins, but something in her eyes had changed. There was no fear in her gaze anymore. Maya had done what she never thought she could. She had taken back her power, but as Donovan approached her, he knew the road to redemption would not be easy. Maya had been trapped in a twisted game, a game played by two people she had trusted, and though she had freed herself from Jeremiah's grip, she was now left with the painful task of rebuilding her life, piece by shattered piece. She looked up at Donovan, her voice barely above a whisper. "I couldn't let him destroy me anymore." But as Donovan processed the scene, something else caught his eye. It was a faint glimmer of light, a reflection from the broken glass on the floor. His eyes followed the trail of light to an envelope half hidden beneath the coffee table. Without thinking, he reached for it, and when he opened it, he found something that chilled him to the bone. Another letter from Dr. Andrews. The letter was written in a calm, controlled hand, as if it had been penned long before the chaos. But the contents were what sent a cold shiver down Donovan's spine. "I have won, and I always will. Maya may think she has defeated me, but I am never truly gone. Remember, I planted the seed of doubt in her mind, and now it will grow. This isn't over." Dr. Andrews had never truly disappeared. Her influence, her control, had seeped into every part of Maya's life, like a virus that couldn't be eradicated. Maya had defeated the physical embodiment of her pain, but Dr. Andrews' power wasn't something that could be vanquished with a gunshot. No, it was something much deeper, and it was a part of Maya's story now, one that would require strength beyond what she had ever known. As the police arrived and took over the scene, Donovan stayed close to Maya. She had made the impossible decision, but the repercussions were far from over. The investigation into Dr. Andrews had just begun, and Donovan had a sinking feeling that this was only the beginning of the fallout. There would be legal battles, emotional scars, and long years of healing ahead. Maya looked at him, eyes weary yet resolute, as the weight of her actions and the events that led to this moment settled into her bones. In that moment, it was clear Maya had survived a nightmare, not just of betrayal and deceit, but of manipulation on a level that few could comprehend. But now, in the quiet aftermath, she was faced with the hardest part of all, finding peace in a world that had almost destroyed her. The truth, as always, had been buried beneath layers of lies. Jeremiah, though he had been a catalyst, was not the true villain of this story. No, the true villain was the darkness that Dr. Andrews had created, the psychological maze that had left everyone in its path broken and bruised. But in the end, Maya's courage had been her salvation. She had taken the power back, and though the road ahead was uncertain, it was a road she would walk on her terms. What does this story teach us? It teaches us that manipulation isn't always obvious. It isn't always loud or violent. Sometimes it's quiet, it's subtle. It's the person you trust the most who can sometimes be the one to break you. But it also teaches us something far more important. True strength comes from within. Maya found her power not through external validation or the approval of others, but by standing up for herself when everything seemed lost. She became the heroine of her own story, and in doing so, she freed herself from a life she had never deserved. No one can truly take your power unless you let them. If you found this story gripping, if Maya's strength resonated with you, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that challenge the truth, explore the depths of human emotion, and uncover the hidden realities of the world around us. And don't forget to comment below. What do you think about the shocking twists in this story? Do you believe Maya was justified in her actions? Or do you think there was another way out? Let's start a conversation. Like, share, and subscribe. And keep coming back for more powerful stories like this one. Together, we'll uncover the truth, one story at a time.